So we are here. This is going to be episode 8.
Number 8.
Yeah. So we really have to amp it up next year, 8 in a year. This should have been like episode 16, but...
It's been kind of a crazy year.
Yeah, it's 2020.
We got an excuse.
We got stuff going on.
Got a special guest today.
Best $60 ever.
Yeah, for real.
Too funny. So I guess heads up for anybody listening in. This episode is probably going to publish like on Saturday or Sunday this week. So probably some spoilers. If you have not seen back things on The Mandalorian, you'll want to watch. If you haven't seen the most episodes, go over like the latest Cobra Kai trailer that you sent me that dropped today, and just kind of whatever else we want to. I think we just decided we're going to go a little more organic with this episode and try and be that way in the future, and not so formulaic, and let things go where they're going to go.
Yeah, we're just going to hang out. Going to talk about whatever updates or whatever we decide to talk about. But one thing I'll just talk about real quick with updates. At our school, I think we have more adult students now than I've ever had on the books, so that's pretty cool. Especially given, in the midst of a global pandemic, and we are training with a lot of restrictions and stuff, but I really personally truly feel that it's better now than it ever was. From the training to the people that are here, to the organization, to just everything, just is much better than it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to assume that's a big part of why we're seeing the growth. Made some changes that my professor was telling me to make, and I finally took his advice, and it's certainly paid off. I think I mentioned this before, but I can't ever think of when I took his advice and it bit me in the ass. So shout out as always to my professor Keith Owen for setting a good example and stuff. So that's been good. And then this last weekend I got to give out and promote my very first blue belts, and of course this is one of them. So congratulations!
Thank you.
Getting your blue belt. It's a big deal.
Yeah, it felt like a big deal.
Yeah, it was.
It was a pretty intense workout. It still kind of doesn't seem real. Like, it's funny because I remember you saying about the black, and I know, blue is just the very first step. I mean, it's not for our association because I know people know in previous podcasts that we have like a green. But now I also see the importance of the green, and why it's kind of like such a hallmark of keeping people going. Like, from, nothing to now, like if there wasn't that kind of like halfway in between phase, like that's a long road to blue, to claim that you have a beginner's level proficiency at something, right? Because blue doesn't, like, in the grand scheme of things, like, oh, you're a blue belt,
Blue's still technically a beginner belt.
Yeah. But I think that the way that the association here is structured with that green, like, it kind of gives you something to look forward to in the more interim. It's like, yes, you're still a white belt, but you feel like you've accomplished something. You can see that you're getting somewhere. Yes. And I think that helps the dropout rate, but more importantly, the mentality of where we're going, right?
Yes.
But yeah, it was fun. So I guess for people that are in different situations and scenarios, so like our blue belt test consists of 9 different drills with probably about like 97 moves.
Yeah, it's about 10 to 12 moves a drill.
Yeah.
I think it's about 95 or 98 moves.
Yeah, between them, with like basically core moves and stuff like that, and going through the thing of like, you're upright in the fight, then you're down, the person's trying to get around your legs. Well, now they got around your legs and stuff like that. But definitely felt a lot better than when I had to do them the first time to get like the green belt and stuff. But I'm excited. It feels good, and it's just I guess very humbling. It's like you realize like you've come a lot further than most so far. I guess you had told me before the statistic is what was the percentage that drops out before they get to blue?
It's less than half make it to blue.
Yeah. So that feels good, but it also is just another humble reminder of how much you still have to learn and how far you have to go. But that's great. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Absolutely. I think we were just talking about less than half of people that start jiu-jitsu adult program make it to blue. Obviously, we all know this, right? Mm-hmm. As teachers and school owners, and I think it's important that we continue to strive to get that statistic changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's yet another reason why the green belt is so valuable, right? If I can get you to blue, right, well, at least you're already ahead of half of everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But if you quit as a dirty white belt because of lack of progression, whatever, lack of promotion, then I can't help you go to the next level, right? So I think what we're going to see now is, especially for our school, we're seeing so many more green belts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been promoting a lot of green belts lately, and which is awesome. We've incentivized it a little bit, and I don't think even people are as motivated by that as we think, to be able to roll after green. But with that said, incentivizing it, giving a very clear-cut path. I watched a video from the Gracies, and they were talking about the number one reason people quit. And I'm sure when I say those words, 1,000 things go through your head. But do you know what they said it was?
The number one reason why people quit?
Number one reason people quit. According to the Gracies.
Other than it's difficult?
Well, again, there's obvious answers, right? But the number one reason in their opinion, let's say, that people quit is lack of curriculum.
Really?
Yes. If you don't know where you're going, it's very hard to get there. And this is nothing against schools that operate this way. I will just say that some of the very biggest schools I've been to have a very strict curriculum, and they tend to be growing exponentially, whereas places that kind of, play it by the seat of pants, I'll promote you when I feel like it, tend to not have as big of student base, right? And
or schools that are like promotional based on competition. Because like this year, what would you have done?
Right.
It's a whole year of
you're not getting promoted for a year then?
Right.
Yeah, based on competition, or just completely arbitrary. You just show up one day and, you know what, I feel like you've probably been here long enough, I guess I'll give you a belt. And again, if that works for your school, that's all fine and dandy. I just want to make sure we're sharing what's working for us. It's working really well. And again, according to Grace, it's lack of curriculum. And as I've seen with my own program, as we've adopted the curriculum and had a more strict adherence, okay, we're doing drills, and this is what stripe you need to get your next, this is the drill you need to get your next stripe. And then when you have these drills, this is what it takes to get this belt. And when then you have that belt, these are the drills and the hours needed. So it's very clearly defined. And the best part about it too is it doesn't exclude anyone.
Right.
If you don't want to compete, maybe you have injuries, maybe you can only make it to class every so often, and you're more of a casual hobbyist type of student. At least you know exactly what the expectations are, right? I even have a board of all the students that says when you're promoted and when you're expected to be promoted next. And I hung it right on the front so that when you walk in, you can go, okay, there's my name, and I need working towards that. And so it puts a little responsibility on the student versus you just kind of show up, arbitrarily, and I guess I'll keep training. And again, I'm not saying you shouldn't train for the love or to get better, because that's obviously why we're here, is to get better. But we are human beings. And with that, we do like feedback, especially visual feedback. We like to have something to show for our efforts. And I think the green belt's going to help create more blue belts. And then, I hope the blue belt and the drills help create more purples in the future too. So.
Yeah. I think what's cool too is, and I'm sure it's always been there, and I don't know how much of it is, COVID and stuff this year, but like I feel with the stripes in the curriculum, so like each different set of moves in the school curriculum here is a stripe.
Each drill represents a stripe.
You have to go through.
Versus before it was generally like a time-based situation.
Yeah.
And we do time-based too after green.
Yes.
You need 25 hours of green, which is basically you just showed up enough to get, the drills down. But then, another extra 125 hours. But again, it's clearly defined on how you work towards your promotion.
Yeah. But I feel the camaraderie that's come with that is kind of twofold, and both in great ways. It's like, oh, you need the green drill, right? Well, I just did that one last week. So here, let me show you. Like, it was this. Oh, don't forget, you got to throw this in. And I feel that kind of mentality of that helping is a lot more prevalent now.
Yes.
And I can't help but feel, too, that on some level, even though there's the pods, that the rolling has so much to do with it. Because before, you could grapple, but now you can't grapple until you're at green. And I know we've discussed that before, so I won't go into all that again. But, like, there's that extra encouragement not only for you, but your friends want you to get there too, because like they want to roll with you, right? It's like, we're here, you're the load, right? We're carrying your weight. Like, come on, like we want to, like, let's help this. So we'll drill it with you, So I feel that like those changes have helped for that as well. Like I feel that people are a lot more, and because you've been doing the drills so much in the class structure and stuff like that they're fresh for everybody, and it's easier for people to hop in and help one another, and it's been really cool to see. Yeah,
and I think that it does empower people when they can feel like they actually know what the hell they're talking about. If you show random moves here and there, and they don't know what you're going to show or what's expected, or if they missed a class, then you don't have the same confidence to help your teammate. But if you like for example, when you get your blue belt, you've officially tested on the first 5 drills in our curriculum 3 times, right? So it's like you had to test to get your stripe on your white belt. You had to get the 4 stripes, the 4 drills, and the 5th drill, you do all 5. Boom, you get your green, and then you get 4 more stripes for the next 4 drills, right? You do your blue belt test, and guess what? You gotta do the drills again. So you have to test when you get your stripes. You test for the first 5 again when you get your green, and then you test for them again when you get your blue. So how much more of a competent teacher with repeatable skills do I have on the mat now? When I have you as a blue belt that you now test that drill 3 times, and how is your confidence level to help the new student with the white drill or the blue drill? In one of those first 5, you feel really good because you've tested on this 3 different times, and it's good to. I see a lot more empowering, a lot more empowered students on the mats with the drills because they feel the confidence. They know what they're talking about. Like one of our pod mates. They take notes. You can tell the confidence has changed. It's like a different person than when they started. It's just cool to see what that does to people, and like that's what we're really here for. And so it's getting us to the goal quicker.
And I think the coolest thing about that, just make sure that didn't shut off. The coolest thing about that too, that that I've noticed in her and with drills and stuff is like, I still don't feel like I'm anything now that I have that blue belt. Like I feel like I've shown.
Jiu-Jitsu is very humbling.
The base value that I have an understanding of what this is and how to do this to the level I'm capable of with the hours that I've had, right?
Yeah.
But I've also noticed now, like my focus on those drills that we've done them so much is like I've changed what I look at. Like before, I was like hyper focused on this aspect, like what's going on with the hands. I'm like, well, now I know what's going on with the hands. What's going on with the rest of what's going on with the legs down here? What's going on with the positioning of this? So you're able to kind of change that, right?
Sure. Your ability to absorb what's happening increases.
Yes, and it made me specifically think of like when you were testing for your black belt and we were looking at a lot of the stuff in the Gracie book that you had looked through and you're like, wait a second, something's off because look at the pictures of the foot and the positioning here and this and just like those tiny minutiae of details that you wouldn't recognize otherwise, right?
Yeah.
So that's been cool. And the other neat thing that I've noticed, and specifically to that potty, is not potty, but our pod mate, potty.
Hot potty.
A potty. Not the squatty kind with the weird unicorn. Is that it seemed to me, like watching new people come in now that I've been here a little bit, the people that are the most, I don't want to say insecure, but unsure of where their boundaries are and what they should be doing to help, actually in my mind I'm like, wow, you're going to be freaking awesome and you're going to be like the best kind of person to help other people. And if you turn into a coach, because like especially with the individual we're talking about, like, well, I wanted to say this but like I didn't know if it was this and it's like I would take 5 million of those type of people any day over the person like, yeah, I got this strike, what you got, and like so confident that you can't be told, yeah, like actually your hands are in the wrong position, like I realize that worked for you but that's not how,
the full cup syndrome.
Yes. And it's just so kind of funny to me because even for her, and if you're listening to this, I love you. I hope you know that. It's like, I love the fact that she has that aspect of humility to her and, isn't sure of that. But it's just so great, too, to look at her and realize, like, you don't even realize how good you are and how much you've, just to throw it out there for them.
Enriched.
Yeah, like, this is a 50-year-old woman that's a mother of 2 that just started, like, under a year ago that has really gone like balls to the walls with jiu-jitsu, worked her ass off, overcome the things of like, she's a woman doing jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, encouraged other women to join me. Like she's like the gold star student
embodiment, right?
that you would want to have in there. And I just think that the extra cherry on the cake for her is like she doesn't even realize to what extent she's that person, and it's so awesome.
Yeah.
So
no, and it's funny on that note, when I look around the mats during class, there's so much more of, let's say, the type of people and characters that I'd like to see at the school. And like I'm all for big, strong, athletic people being here, and we have plenty of that. But when I look around, I see diversity, and I see the small person or the older person. Yeah. We have at least a handful of people that are in their 50s and even 60s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're not only like. They don't tiptoe around precariously. They're neck deep and they train just like everyone else. Mm-hmm. And like for me, that's just there's little things that I look for as hallmarks to, am I doing things the right way or not? And that's always been one of the more important things to me, is that I can see the older person, the woman, the smaller person, maybe the more, tight D person. You can tell that it's really taken them a lot to go outside of their social comfort zone to be part of something like grappling and martial arts. But they were brave enough to take that first step, and then they have just I see them change. You see them go from, shrugged over to just so confident, and they're like a different person because they realize that they can do it. And, jiu-jitsu is very empowering when you get just the smallest little victories. And again, that's why the drills are so important. We don't know everybody's history and background when they walk through the door. Right. There's some psychological profile that probably fits most, but we don't know. And some people might not ever have been told they've done a good job, ever, or can't remember when they have. And I hate to say this too, especially young men nowadays, you don't really get told when you've done well. You generally get told when you've done wrong.
You've done wrong. Yeah.
And so to have an environment where people are constantly encouraging you, constantly reinforcing you, and you have a very clear path of what it takes to do well, and then you get the encouragement, that looked great, and then boom, you're getting the strike, and people are clapping. Like, that's so foreign to people, I think, and actually getting that positive feedback. And I think that's partly what makes people so addicted to come. It's like, the skill is great, but I think everyone underestimates that social factor of, I have something I'm part of now, and this is my team, and we have nicknames, and like we're all working towards a like goal and stuff. And it's just like, that's one of the beauties for me of owning school. Like doing jiu-jitsu school and sharing martial arts. Of course, I love jiu-jitsu with all my heart. I don't think I have to explain that too deeply, but to be able to share that and then see other people really kind of blossom, and then at first they don't even realize it, and it's really fun. And then even more is when they finally do, and they go, look, I can see that I'm different now, and like, thank you, this has been great. It's like there's nothing better than that for me as a teacher than to get that kind of feedback. It's like, look, I'm reflecting now, and wow, this has been a great change for me. I've lost weight. I mean, who does it sound like? This sounds like half of our school. Thanks, this has been great. I've lost weight. I'm more confident. I didn't realize, this was going to be so fun. Yeah. It's like when people tell us that, it's just like, this is great. And we've had people who were very young kids, and now they're grown. Now they're adult class. We've had, and it's fun to just watch people kind of grow along with the school. And it gives you that sense of family, and that ownership, and that teammanship. I'm up here in Montana away from all my family, but I, day to day don't think about it as much because I have a family here. I have a group that, we're like-minded, we support each other, and and I think for people up here, we're a military town. They're dealing with a similar situation. They don't really have any real family here, but we kind of give that second family, if you will. There's a very almost spiritual feeling when you walk in the door here, and I say that very humbly. But when you walk in here, there's something about it that's very comfortable, very safe, and I think we really let people kind of shine and be themselves in a very judge-free zone. And I don't think that's unique to our school per se, but it's something that I think we hyper-focus on that has helped with kind of our formula for success.
I agree.
100%. So it's been really good. And of course, everybody's obsessed with Star Wars right now because they finally did something right.
Yes. So they keep raising the bar. You know what I mean? Like every episode this season of The Mandalorian that's come out, I'm like, it's better than the last one.
Yeah. Second spoiler alert, guys. We're going to talk about some Mando in The Mandalorian. So if you're not caught up and don't want to hear about it, this would be the time to shut this off. So
I have to launch in and just say, as you're grabbing him, I have got to go along with, like, I threw it out there like a couple weeks ago to Preston that I was like, I'm not so sure that Grogu is going to turn out to be a good character because he freaking, force choked Green Ant in one of the episodes. And like from what we've seen in the past, like force chokes are usually kind of dark side force users. They're Siths.
We were pretty in tune that there was some real indicators that he's not going to turn out so hot for Grogu.
And then
as cute as he is.
Yeah, in this episode that just aired last Friday, like force choking both, and granted,
episode before that with Ahsoka saying she's not going to take him as an apprentice because of the fear in him. It's like, gee, sounds a lot like someone else that was supposed to be good and that bad, huh?
Correct. Yeah.
And that could all be a setup as well, because they're smart. They know the audience knows that.
Yeah.
So it could still be playing on you, making you think it can go that way, right? So, the best case scenario in my head is Mace Windu shows up to take on the Childless Apprentice. That would be badass.
Well, we've already learned, like, they don't have any problem bringing people back. That's, like, realistic that they could be brought back, right?
Sure, and sci-fi is, Star Wars aside, sci-fi is notorious for no one really actually dies.
Yes, there's always a way.
And to me, it's exciting because there was quite a few loose ends with some really cool characters in the Star Wars universe.
Yes.
And we're already seeing, of course, Boba Fett's return last episode was awesome.
He was still so badass. I mean, like...
I know there's kind of a real kind of underground following in Star Wars that kind of thinks Boba Fett's like the coolest character in all the whole universe.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine how happy those people are. I have a friend named Charles, and he's just balls deep into Star Wars too. His whole family has lightsabers. Yeah, he lives here in town. I used to work for him. And that's a joke because he's a dick. We'll get to that. We'll get to that later. But yes, I know him very well. I don't know what color his underwear are or anything, but like I know him. Yeah. But anyway, he's a huge Boba Fett fan, so I could imagine just how elated that guy was last weekend. No one was probably more excited than him as far as anyone I know.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I didn't even speak over you, sir.
No, that was
the attention to detail that they've been putting in. Like I told you, I had saw someone decoded the code chain that, like, Boba, when he goes and shows that this is the code chain, that it's my armor, that they went through, and the code chain is even edited to, like, kind of hide the fact that he's a clone, that Jingo didn't want him to know and stuff like that, and that it's taken off, and that he's a descendant of this person. So I just love that even in something that's encoded that, like, let's say 90% of the people watching that show aren't going to think anything about, that they're putting in that detail and to pull more things into. We've had 3-4 things become canon over, like, the last 2 episodes that were always kind of like, So yeah, I don't know. I'm excited.
Star Wars does a lot of things right, and I think one of the things they do better than really any franchise that I've ever seen is the depth and detail they go into making the universe come alive. It's unbelievable the lengths they go to make everything congruent and have all these little extra Easter eggs like the Boba Fett stuff, And kind of back to me wanting Mace Windu to show up, I think the reason that would just be extra spicy is I think, if you don't remember how the movies went out there, Star Wars geeks,
Mace Windu, because I didn't remember this until you told me.
Mace Windu lopped off Boba Fett's head right in front of him. And now Boba Fett's in the game, right? So if Mace Windu shows back up, I'm pretty sure old Boba's going to remember that.
Yes.
And that might end up a showdown with Mace Windu and Boba Fett, which would just be total nerdgasm for me.
I agree.
And, Mace Windu, spoiler alert, he's going to cut him in half if they fight, because Mace Windu is so powerful.
I agree.
I think kind of a quick Star Wars lore on that, too. Like, I think people forget, like, Mace Windu was second only to Yoda on the council.
Yeah.
Pretty much the quickest jump to council and most successful in the Jedi history. Killed Jango Fett, completely bested Palpatine in battle.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking about a seriously powerful Force user, right?
Yes.
And to think that he just, like, fell off and died with the lightning, come on, man.
No.
You can't kill a Jedi by falling, at least according to the history and the lore.
Well, and you had a really interesting theory that you were talking about the other day of, like, if Mace came back, who Mace might actually be down the road and stuff, and I was just kind of like, what? Like, because I feel like at this point, like, all bets are off, right?
Oh, sure.
Like, I don't know that Grogu is going to make it out of the situation that he's in. Like, he's obviously needed for somebody else.
There's some foreshadowing that they're looking so hot for Grogu.
Yeah.
My little buddy. Isn't he cute? Everybody needs a Grogu.
So I have to tell you this will take less than 30 seconds. Preston got this little guy, and then just for giggles asked my 11-year-old daughter, he's like, why don't you take him over the weekend and take care of him?
Yeah, because I used to live here at school.
He did not get put down for probably more than like 3 minutes at a time. I was like texting him pictures, she's like gaming, and he's like in her lap, or she's like walking around carrying him and stuff. And then like on the Monday that she had to bring him back, she's like, it's going to be really hard, Dad. And I'm like, you realize he's an animatronic, right?
Fictional character.
Fictional character. But it's the eyes. It's those big eyes.
He's pretty handsome. He looks just like his dad. Yeah, not to be confused with his half brother Gogurt.
Yogurt, yes. That's funny.
I'm still 50-50 on whether I like the name Grogu or not. But again, the detail that goes into Star Wars, there's already people trying to decipher
What that name means.
Yep.
Yeah.
Decipher why his name's Grogu, where did that come from, what is the history, why is it this, what does the name mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and Star Wars, the great thing about it is they'll have an explanation.
They will.
It wasn't arbitrary. They didn't just make it up. Like, oh, yeah, that sounds cool. It rhymes with tofu or something. No, there's a reason that his name is what it is, and so it's pretty cool. But I think one of the reasons I really like Star Wars and why it resonates so much with people is it's just a very interesting story, and if you boil down to the meat and potatoes of it, it's actually the same story of all the major stories that we like in life and in history.
Yeah.
But I think one could argue that Star Wars brings families together more than any movie or franchise in our human history.
Mm-hmm.
I specifically know families that's the only movies they go to. They have a lot of kids.
Mm-hmm.
They got to be a little more choosy with where they go.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we go to the Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
And, there's people who like, oh, I went to Star Wars with my parents,
Mm-hmm.
and now I took my kids to the Star Wars. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like it's just so cool, and something that can resonate with everybody,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a place here in town that's a game store. That would be the thing. I mean, like, they have all kinds of things. They have people there that play Warhammer, Magic the Gathering, like all kind of different facets. But every year, like between Thanksgiving and Christmas, they would rent one entire theater for the new Star Wars release, and then just like invite all of those people. It was the thing that overcame whatever specific genre they played in or whatever game, but like they all had some way of Star Wars. Yeah, there's something for everybody.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Even silly geeky things like this last episode, I was like, we got new Stormtrooper armor because the one that was the artillery.
There's new Stormtroopers.
I was like, okay, it's just the same as the Incendiary, but it's yellow. So I'm like, woohoo!
But again, back to Star Wars, it's not just random.
Right.
There's going to be a story behind those specific troopers.
Correct.
Why they're yellow. Why they're
Yeah.
It's just interesting. But
when somebody already said, and it was funny, they're like, it's like martial art belts. The color of the striping on the clone uniform or the trooper uniform is how proficient they are in whatever kind of mechanisms they're using. Yeah, so like yellow cage, the artillery, but now you're red, you're the incendiary. You're capable of doing it like in a melee situation. And it was interesting.
Yeah, we went full Star Wars geek today. I got my Imperial Jiu-Jitsu shirt, my Mando hat, and he's got his. Yeah, we're going hard.
It's okay.
Yeah,
I like it right now.
It's like, who wants to get choked out by someone wearing this hat? Be nice. You never know who you're fucking with.
That's funny. So yeah, I'm excited. I think there's what, 1 episode left, 2 episodes left?
I think there's 2. I think they're doing 8. So I think last week was 6, right?
Yeah.
There's 2 episodes left, and yeah, this last one in Inwell, it was pretty devastating. But yeah, so we've been pretty lucky lately. By now, it's usually like snowy and really cold.
Yes.
It's like 50 degrees and beautiful.
It's been nice.
And it's really good. But yeah, of course, it's coming.
I'll just say, to throw out on the last Mandalorian note too, it would totally make sense for Mace Windu to show up because, again, you're not listening to this. If we said spoilers, so if you're listening to it, sorry. Grogu went to the Jedi Temple. He sent out a call. I would say, like, since she sensing him fear and like he's done Force chokes and stuff like that, he obviously kind of wavers. It would make total sense for somebody like Mace to come back, who we know kind of pulled from both sides of the Force.
Yeah.
So that would make sense.
I would literally cream my drawers if Mace Windu comes back this season.
Yeah.
And what wouldn't surprise me, like if I had to be very specific in my guess, is it'll end with a hint that Mace Windu is going to be back. I doubt they're going to have Boba and Mace all in one season. Although, they've had Ahsoka and Boba, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to predict. Like if I was making it, again, you got to dangle the carrot, right? You got to keep them wanting more.
Yeah.
On that note, too, for those out there, if you've never heard of Star Wars Theory, there's a really cool channel on YouTube called Star Wars Theory, and they do the obvious, which is talk about Star Wars theories. But they also, a couple years ago, made a fan-made film called Vader: Shards of the Past.
Yeah.
And it's by far, in my opinion, the best Star Wars fan-made film ever.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually, at the end of his first episode, they show a purple glow insinuating that Mace Windu is alive and he's going to be part of it. So since then, he's been trying to get funding for a second episode, and he's still working on it from what I understand. But if you haven't looked up Star Wars Theory and watched that Shards of the Past, if you're a Star Wars fan, it's pretty much a must-see. Excuse me. Speaking of must-sees on YouTube, though, funny enough, every single student I go, hey, you have homework. You need to watch a movie called Hicks and Gracie Choke on YouTube. It's free. There's my other YouTube shout-out. You need to watch that. If you have any interest in jiu-jitsu or if you're training and you haven't seen Hicks and Gracie Choke, you need. It'd be like playing basketball and you've never heard of Michael Jordan, right? Like,
yeah.
You need to know who Michael Jordan is if you're gonna play basketball. Like, right. So, to me, that's the same. You need to know who Hickson is and his message, and he's very inspiring. He's a big part of why I'm here today. Both from being inspired by him early on, and then trying to set a good example, always to live up to some big shoes to fill, right? But we're in direct lineage with Elio Hickson, Pedro, and then my teacher Keith. It's just a great lineage, So if you're perusing YouTube, make sure you watch Hicks and Gracie Choke. There's some really cool side stories too. Like obviously Hickson is just unbelievable to watch, but there's a guy named Yugi Nakai who really is an unsung hero in that documentary. It was just very fascinating and epitomizes what to me like a martial art warrior is. Both those guys, and again, if you haven't watched it, that's mandatory homework out there. If you're one of my students hearing this right now, you better freaking watch it. If I ask you about Choke and you haven't watched it, you're gonna see my disappointed face. Like, oh.
Yeah, don't put it past him to throw in things to test to watch if you really watch. Like, wasn't it awesome when there was that scene with the guy and the tiger?
The
tiger.
Thing. Like, the thing. Like, yeah, the tiger. Like, you didn't watch it.
It wasn't a tiger.
So you're in my pod now.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, and I know we're running short on time. There's still so much. We'll have to do another one.
Do a part 2 of the banter.
Exactly. Because this guy's got me hooked on Nip Tuck now, so I had to go back and watch it.
Quarantine, we got a little more time than usual.
Yeah. The only weird thing is I feel like any of the movies from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, like maybe you could have watched those in that period and not felt that things had changed that much. Like, yes, culture and society changed, right?
Sure.
But I just feel like technology now, like going back and watching something from 2013 and like the mobile phone is like this tiny little Nokia and they're still doing like the old T9 text and stuff like that. I'm like,
So what blew my mind was watching some of the old Batman movies, right? So you watch, like the Keaton Batman, or you watch the Clooney, or not the Clooney, but the Killer Batman.
Yeah.
And almost all of his like fancy office type of gadgets are just like everyday shit for normal people now. Yeah. And like it just didn't age well. Like, oh, look how fancy! Like they have like face communication. It's like, or like Spaceballs, right? It's like that's supposed to be so futuristic with the like FaceTime, basically. And it's like, oh, my 10-year-old has that, Whatever. It's just
it's insane, isn't it?
Technology is flying by, and kind of segue. John Danny here talks about this a bit, where he's like, jiu-jitsu. Obviously, the moves have evolved, and there's an evolution of jiu-jitsu with the moves, but the method of training is the same. It's always, hey, here's some moves, practice them up, and then you go to the next move. And of course, he wasn't disclosing what they do differently per se. And there's different things we've done to modify things, but like he has a great point that really forces you to evaluate. Okay, are we stuck in the past, and are we using the exact same training method from 100 years ago? Like, shouldn't that evolve too? Right? And because I was taught like 7 words that kill a business, and I'm sure it applies to anything that it would kill. Is that's the way we've always done it. So I think we always want to innovate the moves themselves, but I think we don't spend enough time to innovate the actual training and how we receive the information. And there's some things that have subtly changed the training jiu-jitsu landscape, like the access to video being probably number one.
Yeah.
When I started doing jiu-jitsu, the best you could find was books at Hastings with 3 black and white photos, and you're with a buddy on your basement carpet trying to figure out shit, right?
Yeah.
And
on that note, sorry, shout out to Ari, who did Submissions 101 and got a deal to revive all of those and do new episodes for it to be broadcast and stuff like that. So
funny enough, it's almost a Boba Fett deal.
Yes.
You do something, you have some success, but enough time passes where it was something and that's maybe not anymore, and then you kind of move on, and then something happens that now you're revitalized to that thing that you thought was kind of in the past. And it's like, I don't think if you asked Ari, even a year ago, like, hey, do you think you're going to be doing like Submissions 101 again and do all that? He'd be like, well, I don't know, I got a lot of, he probably, he has a lot of different things he's doing and stuff, and I think in his mind, maybe that particular chapter was for the most part kind of over. And then to get the call like, hey, we want to do new Sub 101 videos and then have your back catalog. It's like, what a shot in the arm for him to go, like, wow, and I'm sure it's fun for him to revisit that, and I'm sure he's probably having fun reflecting on how far he's come, as a technically a white belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, doing videos to now he's a black belt, undeniably, and a very legitimate one too. I've rolled with him and know lots of people roll with Ari, and he's awesome. He's a tremendous martial artist. He's a great teacher, the way he breaks stuff down. Like, there's a reason I was so attracted to Submissions 101. Of course it was free videos, so that didn't hurt my feelings, but as anyone that trains knows, like, certain teachers and different people will hit you differently, and some people are maybe very well renowned, but for some reason there's a we talk about like that lag in data, right, where it's like between them giving the information and receiving it, something gets lost. And then some people, it's just like they explain it in a way, and for me that's Keith Owen. Keith just knows how to explain stuff, and you're like, oh, I can do that, and I've completely hijacked a lot of his teaching techniques and stuff, and the way he relays information, and it's been super beneficial to me. Like for instance, one thing he does is he makes up really like kind of funny names for movements. It's like, you don't say, oh, now with two hands you grab them on the arm. You go chin up or whatever, right? And it's like, oh, now you remember it's a chin up, and it's like, it just, and Eddie, I think, does the same thing with the 10th Planet moves, kind of making them goofy. But I think Keith takes it a step farther and doesn't just name a move goofy per se. The move's just the move. It's the mechanics within the move. It's like, oh, chin up, sushi, Captain Hook, chinny shin shin.
Yeah. And I feel like some of the, I don't know if this is the right word or not to use, but like the non sequiturs that he throws in while he's doing those, it's that same thing. Like, oh, this guy just crossed his legs. Hey, it's a great day for me, Then like that's kind of like a pneumatic device that you remember, like, oh, great day for me. This guy's legs are crossed. Like, oh yeah, I can do something from here,
What was the guy's name that did the Visine commercials? Ben Stein? Ben Stein,
yeah.
Then you do the foot cross. It's like,
yes.
And that kind of a different topic, I suppose, but it's like, it's, you can be good at jiu-jitsu, but if you don't have a magnetic personality that can really relay the information or keep people interested, it's going to be a long class. And we've seen those classes where maybe the information isn't getting transferred the right way, and boy, those hours drag on, eh?
Yes. Yeah, and we've seen Professor Owen's magnetism is not contained to his body. It's even when he's on a poster and women are in the mall thinking they're making eye contact with him, but he's really just a cardboard cutout.
Oh, that was amazing. I should just hang that poster up again just to...
We should.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, I had like a life-size poster of Professor for one of his past seminars, and literally people were like tagging the school and posts and stuff, taking pictures with him. Like, we locked eyes. Oh, it was amazing.
Can we put like a Santa hat on it for this? Like, it was like,
that'd be a bad idea.
Merry Christmas.
So. It reminds me of Gangs of New York. Like, no one can look you in the eye, Professor, especially when you're playing cards.
That's so funny. I have to tell you real quick too. I know we got to do it because we got class coming up. When you said in sci-fi, I'm curious. You know me well enough. You should be able to get this. When you said in sci-fi, it doesn't matter like what happens. They can always find a way to bring you back.
Oh, yeah.
I had one very specific character that came to mind. I'm curious if you can guess who it is.
What universe?
Oh, it'll give it away too much if I tell you. It's not Star Wars universe. It is a universe that coincides with another sci-fi thing that we're both big into. Does that help enough? So it's a universe that coincides with the Predator universe.
Alien? Ripley.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like shit. Even after she died, they're like, "Oh well, we cloned her."
Oh yeah. No, that's a great. Oh yeah. It's so true though. Like there's always a way to bring someone back, right? And like in the horror movie genre, which could technically classify as sci-fi, like Jason,
Yeah.
great example. You can't kill him, right?
Yeah.
You think he's dead, but like in Jason 6, the lightning hits the spear that the guy stabbed him with to bring.
Yes. And I'm going to tell you this. This will be your cliffhanger.
Suspension of disbelief, people.
I'm really ashamed to admit this to you. I watched the very last Halloween.
And the Rob Zombie one? Like the new one?
Is it the last one? Or maybe was it Freddy versus Jason? Maybe, I don't know. But anyway, like Michael Myers has Jamie Lee Curtis over the side of the building. He stabs her and is getting ready to drop her to her death, and she kisses him, and then falls and dies. And I was like, "What's happening here?" Like it really.
Well, he does have William Shatner mask on. So.
I know, but it was almost kind of like that Stockholm syndrome. Like you fall in love with your aggressor. I was like, I wonder if that's what they were hinting at,
real.
or like, So it was interesting. All right, with that, I'll let you say any last thing you have since I talk over you a lot.
No, that's all good. Nothing really. We'll come back with kind of part 2 of some more casual discussions on the latest stuff in jiu-jitsu, and then there's some kind of high-level celebrity fights that have taken place and or coming up.
Yeah.
We'll get into those. Mayweather's supposed to fight Logan Paul. Jake Paul just fought recently. Nate Robinson. Of course, Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. just fought.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to talk about Conor McGregor coming back to fight Dustin Poirier as well. So we'll get into some more fight discussion for part 2 and give you our thoughts on those. So.
And watch the Cobra Kai Season 3 trailer so you're up to speed, so when we can talk, because by then, hopefully someone will have, like you said, dissected the trailer and every little scene, like, well, this is a hint to this. So
100%. Right. Make sure you say bye to Grogu.
Bye! I have to go drain his essence now so that I can live forever.
Yeah, for real.
All right, we'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Good.